Welcome to Get Tied On. I'm Tom Amello. He's Michael Kipnis. We're brought to you by WizardRacingSports.com. Another review of the previous week at Saratoga, a winner's circle interview, and then we'll ship out with some final comments. But right now, it's time for And Away We Go. Michael, interesting week, a short week. Interesting to see how they make up those races that they lost on Friday and where they put them.
You know they will, number
They
one.
have to.
And the best part of it is there's a couple races, maybe 3 races from Friday cancellation that they brought back on, this week.
Right.
So it's like less handicapping for us.
Hopefully, yeah,
They changed the post positions.
But
And there's always a new student. You still got to do the race.
Right. It doesn't shorten the work. But, the whole point, and let's be clear, I always say, I'm a retired high school teacher, the toughest decision a school superintendent makes is to decide whether to close schools on a snow day. And the worst thing that can happen to a superintendent is for a school bus to slide into a ditch, right?
Yeah.
And so they close schools because they don't want any kids in the ditch. Well, folks were upset about the cancellation, especially since the rain didn't arrive on time. But I'm going to say safety first can never be argued against.
No, I agree. They had no choice but to do that. But Wednesday.
Yeah, let's talk about Wednesday.
Wednesday, it was off the turf, small field, short prices, which we've seen on several occasions here at this meet. Race 3 owned the field. Another win for Mike Maker. Maker's hitting over 20%. He's quietly having an outstanding meet. Race 4, Mott and Alvarado also having a very good meet individually and together, especially. Classic Legacy, an odds-on winner.
Yep.
Race 5, another, but this one is not a New York-based trainer, John Ortiz. John Ortiz plies his trade usually down at Churchill.
In the Midwest.
In the Midwest, and he won with Unsung Melody, 4 wins in 6 starts. Now that's
that gets your attention.
Big time. That was, and all of them, or I think most of them, were Churchill shippers.
Let's just to interject here. Bottom line is you want to pay attention who's warming up or who's hot, and you got to discount the guys who are cold. I mean, Rudy Rodriguez for most of this meet has been a cold guy who you could avoid. As soon as he got his first win, he perked up and he's had a few more.
And as we go on through the week, there's a couple other guys that did that as well. They were offers and they finally won. Race 8, another odds-on favorite, Sterling Silver Romps had a class edge. Another Mott Alvarado. That was 2 for them that day. Race 9, another win for Maker. 2 wins for Maker on this card, 2 wins for Billy Mott. I didn't think there was a bias, but, small field, short.
Mm-hmm.
Thursday, the turf was good. The dirt was wet fast. Then they sealed it during the day. I don't understand exactly why they seal it and they take off the seal and all that. I just don't understand. But Thursday, the races were taken off the turf for race 6 when the rain fell. So race 2, Timothy Ham wires the field off a layoff for him. Odds on Chad Brown horse, Passive Management, well beaten second. Race 3, Looms Boldly wired the field for Brad Cox and the John Morrissey. Got clear when Rockney stumbled out of the gate. The race was basically over when that happened. I have to make mention that that Maggie Wolfendale and Acacia Courtney, the 2 commentators that Naira have, are outstanding. Usually the mute button's on most of the day for me, especially at home when I'm home. Those are 2 women that really the mute button should be taken off and you should listen to what they have. They did have a negative on, I don't know, they sound alike, believe it or not. I can't separate them at times.
Oh, I can.
Can you? I couldn't from where I want my vantage point. So I don't know who said that Rodney she had a negative comment on that horse, and Rodney did not run well, ran dead last. And they've done it this meet where they have pointed you
Right.
more for the negatives than the positives. I rather hear the negative on them. There was one horse that I don't remember the name. It was Carrera in race 7. Carrera, who won the race, that she said, I don't know who it was, as I mentioned, but said that the horse's foot was the perfect size to handle an off track. Yeah. And I want to hear that because usually they're right.
Well, the only thing that I would say about what they say and when they say it is I really wish it was earlier than later so you could make an adjustment and get a bet in. I mean,
they say it in the paddock. Yeah. I mean, it's 10, 12 minutes.
Not all the time. Not all the time. Okay. Sometimes it's, it all depends. Listen, it all depends on who's on the table. You're going to tell me. He's going to tell me.
I'm going to tell you something. If I heard a comment with 0 minutes to go and they were walking behind the gate and it was a negative or a positive comment and I wanted to make a bet, I'd have the time to make the bet.
You would have the time to make a bet.
You need your brain to take 10 minutes.
I'm talking about the public. I'm not talking about you.
I'm faster than you.
Next. Let's move on.
Race 9, Fancy Pants Juliana. Yeah. Second win for David Donk on the card. David Donk, friend of mine, woken up at the meet.
That's right.
Friday, we all slept in and watched the rain fall when it did.
It was difficult.
It was. It was. I was kind of clawing up the walls. It was different. You're like you're like on autopilot. Like you're up here. If they told us Friday would be canceled 2 weeks ago, I would have gone on vacation.
Yeah, we'd have done so. Right. Can't do anything.
Race 1 on Saturday. Look, I didn't pick this horse. Sandman, Mark Casse. 1 point on top.
Yeah.
He's got a man than me. $1.2 million Ocala March sale, won his second start. I didn't think his debut was any good.
Perfect inside trip too.
I want to tell you something with these races, with these maiden 2-year-olds this meet. The ones that have experience are winning these races. Even if they look ugly, they're running good. The firsters this meet are not any good. I mean, in general, a lot of them, there've been some winning first-time starters, but a lot of them with the 40 furlongs worth of work.
Yeah, they're not running across.
We've been taking the collar on some of those.
Yeah, well, I still, my penchant is to take the second or third time starter over the first time starter, unless I really have a reason. So,
right. Race 2, Band for Life, another win for Al Stall. That was a horse. Did you have that horse on top?
I don't believe so.
Okay, well, I didn't either. He took it on the collar again. Band for Life, Al Stall, Louis Saez. Saez is finally winning races here. He is absolutely a terrific rider. Yeah. He started off cold, but he's heating up big time. Yeah. You didn't pick cold as hell, did you, for Lucas in the third race?
Never.
Okay. We took the lead pipe again. The first win in 17 starts.
Never.
A Saez double.
Never.
Those 1 for 17s, they're not my cup of tea. Lucas won. Now, that was his first win at the meet.
The comedy and the tragedy of that is that sometimes you look at a horse who's 1 for 17 or 0 for 14, and they've run some good races. They're just not finishing. And so, this is a game of projecting improvement, but it's tough when you haven't done anything good in a while.
Look, these maidens that are 0 for 19, 1 for 20, those are the horses that win in the winter at Aqueduct.
Well, we're going to talk about that later.
They're winning here at Sunday.
Right.
Tenacious Leader, race 7. Enjoyed the stretch out and distance. That was the second win. Cold as Hell being the other one for Spendthrift Farm. Band for Life was the other. Race 8. That was a weak Saratoga special, don't you think? Showcase, it's a stalking trip. Wins for Pletcher and Irad. I don't think those horses are that much.
I don't know. I do think that one, Dallas Stewart came ready to run, and two, his horse got battered around and bumped around in the stretch run. I mean, he wasn't going to win the race, certainly, but I thought they could have taken a look at that at least.
You know, race 10 illustrates to me where I wish I had $20 million.
Oh.
Because I would spend $1 million on off the turf horses. I'm going to point for the off the turf races.
Well,
you know why? The Troy off the turf. Surveillance wins. He's off the turf horse. Yeah. First win for Potts. He's another one.
That's right.
Duck. 0 for 15.
Yeah,
right?
I'm throwing him out.
Right. Race 11. A horse comes out of my Reddington race.
Yes,
and wins.
Print track. Let me tell you two things. We thought we could beat you. I mean, we really thought we could beat Reddington in that race, and we were helped. We were helped by the speed duel. You know, when Reddington beat Print track, you know, I thought Print track it really wasn't all that classy, and
not classy, but he's a winner.
No, absolutely, he's a hard-nosed winner. But that was a class. I thought that was a classier field, and we got helped by the duel. No question.
No doubt.
Okay, well, Print track was the best bet for me today, Saturday, primarily because that was a strong pace. I thought he had a pace edge here, and then what happens? Saez takes him back, and he just runs by the duel in front of him.
You know, he wins his 12th race of his career. Now, I have Reddington sitting on another win. Yeah. Okay. Now, we got $17 on him. Okay. But the only spot here is a 50 claimer going 7. It's an extra. But there's also a much cozier spot at a mile, an allowance condition, a weaker field at Monmouth Park on the 31st. So I know as a handicapper, I got set up to win with Reddington. It was a perfect setup, perfect trip. I rather go to Monmouth and look for the right spot rather than saying, "Oh, let's win another race at Saratoga and get our picture taken." We'll lose the horse, and we probably won't get our picture taken because we really benefit a tougher spot. So that's where you got to understand the race like you did with picking Print track on top, right? Because you knew that he got hurt by the pace.
Absolutely.
But also Reddington got help. So I know that as a handicapper, I'm going to escape Dodge and go elsewhere into a better spot.
And what you're talking about too is the conditions, the condition book, the options that trainers and owners have, and as handicappers, you got to pay attention to that.
It's not easy to do when you're here at Saratoga. You want to win again at Saratoga. I know he's live, but I also know I'm probably going to look to beat him if I was doing a sheet. I mean, logically, right? Got to mention Tyler Gaffleone. He's had a great week. He's in a serious battle for leading jockey with Pratt. I mean, they're very close. Those two are going to have their race together. Irad's up there too, but Gaffleone's riding great. I love that guy, the way that guy rides. Sunday,
Sunday.
When I did the card for Sunday, I said to my friend, if the gods of racing shine down on me, I could have a good day. But if they're not happy with me, I'm going to really get creamed.
I'm going to tell you something. Tell the folks something. We both published a sheet. We only had an 11 race field card right? We only had picked 2 of the same horses.
We had a chance to win.
So
We had a really good chance
No,
to win.
in 9
So
of
it's
those
emotional.
races, you went this way, right? And we couldn't.
I mean, you got out.
I got out.
You still lost money. I lost money. You said you lost money.
Yes, I said
you got out.
That's right.
But you didn't get out.
No, I didn't get out.
So, but you did.
I saved the sheep.
You saved the sheep. But by that time, I saw it littered. The track was littered with blue and yellow.
How dare you?
Blue. The sheets littered Union Avenue. There was nobody that knew you had the last 2 winners.
That's right, because they all went home.
Right, exactly.
That happened.
But you know who was very good that day?
Go ahead.
Had a lot of winners, and you know he's the talk of the town. He gets a free drink probably whatever bar he wants to go to. Safi Joseph. What a meet that guy's having, right?
Yeah. We talked about him last week.
He figured it out.
I didn't like either of his. Horses. And Sweet Melania, she won. She was in Kansas, and the rest of the field were here in New York.
The guy's just been unconscious. Okay, it's taken him a couple of years to figure it out and what horses to bring here, but he has figured it out.
I'm going to tell you something too. What I missed on the Safi horse was Averill Racing from Tampa.
Right.
I miss that because when they have a horse here, they're taking home the cash.
Right, and he also protected that horse in a starter.
Yeah,
he didn't want that horse.
That horse wasn't going.
I fell asleep at the wheel.
Yep.
They went. So Safi Joseph and Gaff Leone hook up again in race 4 with that Sweet Melania.
Yeah.
What was the name of the horse?
Yeah, Sweet Melania.
Right. Who won for fun.
Yeah.
Right, destroyed the field. Claimed by Linda Rice. Linda Rice has not had a great meet.
If it wasn't for off the turf, she'd be having trouble.
She starts a lot of horses and she does well for the race.
But she admitted she didn't have a lot of horses.
That's right. But she's reloading and she will be back in with a vengeance.
Absolutely.
The only race 6 is what we were talking about, a maiden special weight field where I went I took all maidens, first time starters, right? The 35 furlongs of work, the 40 furlongs, the bullet, the $600,000 purchase. Right. They took the kibosh because the horses that ran 1-2 in the race were the only horses that started.
Yeah.
Okay, they run 1-2.
Mark won that way.
Mark Casse won for owner Tracy Farmer.
Goodbye.
Okay, Casse's had an outstanding meet, and he's got our guest this week on our show. Tracy Farmer, an owner, longtime owner. Now, those 2 horses that had run in a 9-horse field, right? 7 were first-time starters. $111 exacta. Lucas underneath Casse.
Yeah, well, but the Casse horse just beat the gate and was gone.
Right. Race 10, well, your sheet was littered and people were throwing it out on the street, right? Finally has his first winner, Carl Spackler.
Carl Spackler, yep.
Impressive win, another victory for Gaff Leone and Brown. Wins the 4-star Dave, 4 for 5 at Saratoga.
Yep.
Now, how ironic, it's the 4-star Dave, right? 4-star Dave was the ultimate horse,
the Sultan,
the king of Saratoga. Carl Spackler's on his way,
right?
And who gives out the trophy? I see him walking, the Irish leprechaun, Leo O'Brien, right?
Well, why not?
Comes moving down the side, moving side by side into the winner's circle. What a legend up here, Leo O'Brien.
That's right.
That's a riding triple for Gaff Leone. Race 11. Everyone's drinking at the paddock with no track fact sheet, as you had a Carson's Run 5-1.
Right.
But they all had littered the streets on the way to the brewery.
I was standing in the paddock suite saying, "Bet Carson." Bet not. They wouldn't listen.
You were shouting.
I was shouting,
and there was no one there.
No one there.
It was empty.
Well, no, it's never empty at the paddock bar. Never.
But the guy turned around, I heard, and he said, "I got no money left, Tom, for the play." Okay,
because he bet the Wizards sheet.
We double teamed that guy. Okay, that was Carson's Run, outstanding pick. I bow to you.
Thank you.
I didn't think the horse classed up. You were right. West Point
Well,
celebrate.
and then, yeah, West Point, they celebrate well. They're
Big
good.
time.
They're good. I think the Ferry and Bell House,
I heard them screaming from the roof.
that's what they
It was
do.
so loud I
They're
almost
the
fell
best.
off the roof.
They're
Okay.
they should just, racing should just film all the West Point guys watching races because they could sell the game.
I mean, Bell House looked like Santa Claus getting gifts on Christmas. Okay, not giving gifts. He was so beautiful, big smile, hugging.
Yeah.
I never saw a guy
And-
get so many hugs on.
And the other thing is that Carson's run is similar to Cody's Wish, has a connection to a disabled man whose father is a friend of Terry's. So there's an emotional connection to Carson's run that it's a good story as well.
Right. And Clement, he's had a rough meet. He's
Yep.
only had 2 winners up to this race, but I think this could be his turn. Hopefully a turnaround.
And then it was another Dylan Davis day.
He's had an outstanding meet too. What could you say? The guy's just riding great.
Yeah.
So that's all. We just covered the whole
Okay.
thing.
So
Day.
there's the week. And we've got, I don't know, 16, 17 days. And Wiz, you just put the two of us out of business.
They'll be back.
No.
Listen, we're cracked for the gambler.
That's
okay?
true. That's
So
true.
they never know.
They
One
never-
of these days we're going to have a great day.
That's right.
And they want to be around to have it.
Absolutely.
They'll be back for your sheet.
That's right. So we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll have our Winner's Circle interview with Mark Casse, right?
No,
This-
we
well,
Mark Casse this week.
This
That's right.
week, yeah.
That's right.
And we're also, yeah. So we'll be back. We're brought to you by Wizard Racing Sports. So check them out. Goodbye.
Welcome back to the interview portion of our show of Get Tied On. I'm actually honored to have as my guest this week, Hall of Famer, not only in Canada, but here in the United States, trainer Mark Casse. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thanks for having me.
Now, tell me if I'm right, there's only 2 trainers that have been inducted to the Hall of Fame in both Canada and the US, and that's you and Roger Atfield, right? Is there a third?
I don't know, to be honest. I know Roger. Roger's the only one that I know of. So
No, I think it's just the 2 of you.
maybe.
And that's an unbelievable sense of accomplishment. What was, I mean, look, you basically have owned Canada racing at Woodbine for many years, but when you got inducted to the Hall of Fame, I actually watched your speech, which was fantastic.
Thank you.
Was it one of the thrills of your life? Obviously.
Probably, I think probably the biggest thrill as far as horse racing goes. Obviously, I have personal, kids and wife and beautiful, those great things. They're in a different category. But as far as horse racing goes, yeah, the Hall of Fame, because it means that you were good and you weren't good for just a short period of time. I told my youngest, who is now 21, Colby, and I said, Colby, this shows you that you can do everything the right way and still succeed. I'm very proud of that. I'm proud of our record, not just with winning, but in everything. I think I try to be a gentleman. I try to treat everybody as I would like to be treated. I have 10 people that have worked for us for over 30 years. So I'm very proud of that. And I don't cut corners, and I do things the right way. And I feel like that I'm a true horseman. I didn't realize, honestly, until I went through a 3 or 4 year period where I didn't get in. I was a finalist, but I didn't realize how difficult it is. I think they changed the rules, I think maybe 10 years ago or so. And Todd and I are the only ones that have gotten in recently. I think you have to have over 50% of the voters vote for you, and getting 50% of any riders to 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 agree on something is not easy. So I'm very, very proud of it. Very proud.
So you've been in the game, you know, you're what, 63, 64.
I'm
So,
63. Yeah.
so, I'm 67. So I've been in the game like you, well, professionally since the mid 80s, but I've been, going to the racetrack since the 60s. And I'm a professional handicapper. I own horses. I do a lot of different things, but it's taken me a lot of years because we're in the game the same way. It's just in a different capacity to be able to separate our family life with the rigors and the demands of what we do as a profession. I know it took me, I'd say the last 10 years, I've been doing a much better job, especially the last 5 or 6. It's taken that long. Is that the same? Did you have to go through kind of that, you know, time of trying to?
Oh, for sure. And I think those things you learn as you get older and a little smarter. You find out too, what's important, what isn't important, and but
Isn't it great when you do? It's just different.
it is, and then you try to teach your kids the same. They don't listen quite as good,
They
and then
don't, right?
as they get my oldest son Norman, who is he's doing very well. He's a good trainer. He about 6 months ago he said to me, Dad, I'm so sorry for all the things I put you through. And he goes, um, you would tell me and I wouldn't listen, and now I get it.
Now, your dad, Norman,
Hmm.
right? So you started at a really young age because he was in Ocala, right? And he had a farm
Right.
and he,
My dad, yeah, started when we moved to Ocala when I was 5. So,
and
and
he
my,
was in the horses
yeah,
from when you were born, right?
he was just getting into it. His family, believe it or not, was in fire equipment and police equipment. They were from Indianapolis, and what happened was he went with my grandfather, his father, to Keeneland when he was about 17 or 18, and he caught the bug then. So I've been coming to Saratoga since I was 10 years old, and that was the other thing about the Hall of Fame. I would go, and every year I'd go through the Hall of Fame. As a young boy, you're so, because when horse racing is your life, you take in it all. And I told my dad, I said, I'm going to be in here one day. And as any good father would do, said, I'm sure you will be. And so that was another thing that made being put into the Hall of Fame, that much more special. Unfortunately, he passed away, a few years prior. So, but I'm sure he saw.
I'm sure he did. So you're in grade school, right? And you start out like you're like 8 or 9, right? That weren't you that
I
young that
think
you can?
I had my first mare when I was 10. Yeah. Yeah. Fairest One was her name. But I just loved horses. I mean, my father believed in making you work. So I worked every weekend, you know, in the barn. I would night watch when I was 10 or 12 years old. I would, on Friday nights and Saturday nights, I would stay up and watch the mares to see if they were going to fold. And if they were, then I would have to call. When I was 12, 13, these things now, if you did them, they would put your parents in jail. But, I was 12, 13 years old. I would ride in the back of a horse van. I would leave on a Friday afternoon, ride as an attendant to Lexington. So you would get there at usually 5 or 6 in the morning on Saturday morning. Then I would get on a van and come back Saturday night and be back home on Sunday morning, and then I would go to school on Monday.
How old are you? Uh,
12.
That's
13.
that's incredible. And so your dad had a farm,
He
right? He
did.
had,
My dad has a farm, a small farm. Like, well, in the beginning he had 40 acres. Again, a little later on, I think it got up to 200 acres. It's Cardinal Hill Farm, and that's where I grew up. Yeah.
and so you're like 12 years old, and then what happens like as you are getting older and you're with your
Well,
dad?
I'm watching, the worst day of the week for me was Sunday because there was no racing form. All the racing forms would be delivered at our farm and people would come and pick them up. So, um,
Did he
when,
take you to the track? Were you
oh
going?
yeah, we could go. We went to we,
You saw Secretariat
Secretariat. I
when
saw Secretariat get beat by Onion here. I was down at
I was
probably
here
about
too.
the
I was here
360
too.
pole.
That you were also at the Derby when Secretariat won.
I was.
And
Those are the kind of things, that that yeah, everybody else was reading cartoons and doing. I was always just reading the racing form. Later on, I worked for a guy named Harry Mangurian who owned the Boston Celtics, and I would have been well, it would have been in the 80s. So I've been 25, maybe 30. And I started telling him about horses that he owned. And he goes, "How did you know?" He said, "You were like 12 years old." And I said, "That's all I ever cared about, you
the
know?"
the great, I saw a Damascus buck passer, a Dr. Fager run in the 60, I think it's
Yeah, see,
60, right. But
that would have been a little bit before I would have been,
right.
watching.
But I the greatest moment at a racetrack that I ever experienced was when Secretariat, I took the train out by myself to see Secretariat win the Belmont Stakes.
Oh,
And I
okay.
never could imagine a racetrack stand. Belmont is huge,
Right.
right? The stands were rocking. They were
Wow.
actually shaking. And I was right on top. I snuck down. I didn't get a seat. I was a little kid. I was, what, let's see, 73. So I was 16. And I was on the rail and was right, not too many rows down was Penny Tweedy.
Oh, really?
And I actually saw when she grazed her hands like that
Oh,
in
really?
victory. And I never experienced a moment like that to see as he's going down the stretch and he's just opening up 20, 25. I've never seen a performance like that ever. And I
Right.
never was at a racetrack. American Pharoah, when he won, was close second.
Yeah, I would say American Pharoah for me may have been, um, that moment for me,
Yeah, and it
And then I guess when Zenyatta,
won the Breeders' Cup, right?
yeah,
Classic.
well, and I cheered for when she got beat. Didn't she get beat the
I
one?
blame right at the
I
wire.
cheered
Right.
so hard for her. I cheered harder for her probably than any horse that I didn't own or train.
Yeah, my guest that's going to air tomorrow was Chantel Sutherland from last
Oh
week.
yeah,
So her boyfriend at the time, Mike Smith, wrote
right.
Zenyatta. But I asked her because she was around Zenyatta, what she looked like, and she was describing it in detail.
Yeah,
And what an Amazon! I
yeah,
mean,
she was big,
you know,
very big.
were you did you train for Harry Mangorian? Like, did he
I did
actually have a,
some. I was his general manager when I went to work for him. I went to work and helped him through his breeding operation. We ended up being, I think, the leading breeder in North America for 4 or 5 years. But he was a wonderful man, and he kind of he saw the potential in me and let me do things that kind of took me to the next level. And I definitely wouldn't be sitting here today, or you wouldn't be interviewing me if it wasn't, he was a large part. Obviously, my father, Harry Mangurian, and then really, um, when I've done well, but I would say in the last 20 years is when things kind of really took off, and a lot of it has to do with my wife Tina. You know, it's when we met, and she runs all our she takes care of all the business part of it, and she's you know, we're just best friends, and we do everything together, and she's amazing. And yeah.
Eugene Melnick too was a important part of your career.
He was, and he wasn't. That was kind of when I started going in Toronto. Eugene would come and go, though. Eugene, yeah.
But
we'll leave it at that.
So he is that the reason you end up kind of making Woodbine your home base?
No, had nothing.
What made you go there? Like
in the 80s, I was the leading trainer in Kentucky, but I was very frustrated because we didn't have a circuit. At the time, Ellis Park wasn't what they are to now. We had Arlington Park, who was doing well, but Arlington Park would start in the middle of Churchill's meet, which was in the spring, and you had to make a choice. You had to stay at Churchill, or you had to go to Arlington. They didn't work together, and so after Churchill, there would be nowhere to go, and I went to Woodbine. I introduced to Woodbine through my father. He had done a lot at Woodbine. I went to Woodbine when I was 13 years old with my dad to watch a horse run. And I went up there and I liked it, and I just never left.
That's when they had the dirt course, right?
Right. They had a dirt course. They also had Greenwood, which was downtown Toronto. And yeah.
And Fort Erie had a big race that you would.
Well, they still do, the Prince of Wales. The problem for Fort Erie is that after 9/11, you know, the majority of Fort Erie is a very small town. A lot of their people would come from Buffalo. And then when it made it so difficult now to cross the border, the other thing is then we got off-track betting, and people could just stay in Buffalo. They don't have to worry about it. And it hurt Fort Erie a lot. Fort Erie kind of survives, but it's not easy for them.
Tell me, like, the difference or contrast racing at Woodbine to racing in the States. Like, just, I mean, it's a poly track, right?
Synthetic.
Yeah. But how do they run? It seems like they run a really good operation up there.
I can't say enough great things about Woodbine. I think it's probably the best place in North America to train. Not only do we have the synthetic, we have the best turf course in North America.
It's like a European turf course.
Yeah, right? 1.5 miles. We also have a training dirt track. So so you can kind of do anything. It really had Jim Lawson did a lot of good things in his reign. One was they had an inner track, and it was the harness would come and run there, but they ended up, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, moving the harness permanently to Mohawk. And when they did that, they went and put a turf course, an inner turf course at Woodbine, which allows some of the cheaper horses to be able to run on the grass. So we have 2 turf courses. And I think that was, you know, that was a big, big plus. It was a big plus.
How about like their rate? It seems like they really have a no nonsense policy. Their racing commission and the stewards.
Oh, they don't. Yeah.
They don't. It's different, right?
Yeah, they don't put up with anything. They don't. No, I mean, no, they have never have, and a lot of times they have been on the cutting edge. They've done things. I mean, at the time that they went to the synthetic, that was David Wilmot, and what happened? David Wilmot had a really nice horse. I can't think of his name right now. And he broke down and had to be put down on the dirt, and David was looking for a better track, and there were a lot of promises, a lot of things that came with the synthetic track. Honestly, when they put it in, I wasn't sure that it was a good idea. I think we all learned, how to handle it and how to do it. We're definitely, everybody knows there's been a lot of progress, and the synthetic tracks are much better than they were 25 years ago. But there is no comparison. Nobody, I don't think there's anybody in the world that trains more dirt starters and synthetic starters than me. So I have a very good way, I do my own studies. I tell everybody I've been doing my own studies for 45 years. There's no question in my mind, and I have a big sample size, that synthetic is much safer.
Really?
Oh, it's not even. And if you look at they've been doing they've got synthetic and dirt records for the last 15 years, and the fatality rate on synthetic is much less. Now, I will say, since Heise in the last year, our business was in big trouble. I thought for a while we may lose California. I really did. We were having way too many injuries, too many fatalities. I don't know if you saw, but just the other day they came out and they've cut the fatality rate in just a year in half.
I know. I had Lisa Lazarus on my
Yeah.
show last year, and I said,
Yeah.
it's a great thing what you're doing. There's going to be
Right.
some growing pains.
But
you
there's
know,
always growing pains. Now NYRA's come out and said that they're going to run synthetic all winter long, and I know that there's a lot of people that are not happy about that. But I think it's a little short-sighted. For one, and I hadn't said this to anybody, but when you have a New York bred turf horse, your race period is, the weather starts getting pretty bad in November. So if you have a turf horse, he doesn't get to run from November, a New York bred turf horse, from November till the middle of April, 5.5 months.
right.
Those horses are going to be able to run in the wintertime, because 90% of turf horses like synthetic.
90%.
90%, if not more.
And you have a study of that.
Well, I know
you
piece
know
of
that.
my own horses. Yeah, I would say to you, now this is just my opinion. I'm sure many will fight with me, but I base my opinion on
results. And
yes,
right. I mean, no one's like you
well,
said.
we have, we start over 1,000 horses a year, and I would tell you that less than probably 30% of horses actually like dirt. I would say that 60-70% like turf. And I would say that I maybe 1 out of 20 horses that I train, I feel like aren't as good on synthetic as they are dirt. There would be, all the horses I train, there'd be 4 or 5 horses that I can tell you that just can't handle synthetic.
I can, from handicapping races at Gulfstream
Yeah.
and in the winter, and when it comes off the turf and they run on the synthetic, I can see what you're saying. It's just trainers that have dirt horses, it's a guess, right? Or how do you know? Like it's you don't really.
The problem, and look, Gulfstream putting in the synthetic track was great. Unfortunately, they don't have, we run at Woodbine, we can run 7/8, 3/4, all kind of distance. Because of the circumference of the track at Gulfstream, you're limited 5/8, 5.5, or 1.70 miles. The other thing is you don't get to train on it every day. You can train it on it an hour or 2 a week. So though the synthetic is good at Gulfstream, it's still not as good as, say, Turfway or Woodbine. To answer your question, how do you know? the way you know is by training them over it.
Right,
You train them over it. But how many, you and I both know, because we've seen Saratogas where it rains every day, and you sit there and you see a turf race, and next thing you know, you go from 12 to 3.
right,
That doesn't happen.
right. The field size
No.
remains somewhat
Yeah.
intact.
The other thing, if you look at a turf race, obviously, or a synthetic race, you don't see the separation. You go and you run in a dirt race, there may be 25 lengths from the winner to the last horse. You don't see that type of separation. And the reason for that is because more horses handle it. And the other, a lot of people don't realize this, but if I go and say I work 20 horses on dirt, we scope every horse, so we look to see about their breathing after every work. I would say if I work 20 horses on dirt, at least 40% of them will show some type of bleeding, some type of hemorrhaging. It may be minor, it may be one out of 5, 2 out of 5. I could breeze 20 horses, those same 20 horses on synthetic, and 0 will breathe.
That's unbelievable. I mean,
and the reason why they bounce over it, it gives back. In other words, you run on dirt and it's a thud, they hit, because you remember you got a base, right? And but on synthetic, it bounces back. It has some bounce to it. And in it, so it lets those horses, it's not near as tiring to them.
Will you, like with Belmont going to synthetic in the winter,
Most definitely.
I would think that you would alter your business model a little bit to come and invade with those purses.
Absolutely.
And I mean,
who is going to hurt some? It's going to hurt Gulfstream. It will hurt Gulfstream because right now, Gulfstream has that advantage in the wintertime. You have those synthetic horses that'll show up there. You're seeing it. You've seen, you got a guy named Marty Drexler who's second lead.
He's a Canadian,
and he's been very successful in the last year or two.
Very sharp trainer.
Yeah, very good in the last couple of years in South Florida because of the move to synthetic. You saw me run horses this winter because of synthetic that I would have been sitting on till Woodbine, because they cannot handle the dirt whatsoever.
Right.
And I wouldn't subject them to that. And so you'll see, I would imagine you'll see a guy like Marty Drexler and probably Kevin Attard, maybe Josie Carroll. Those are 3 or 4 of the biggest Canadian trainers. I wouldn't be surprised to see them setting up shop
I would. I mean,
but again, to all I understand some of the New York breeders are concerned. You sit there, some horses will improve, some may go down a little bit, but you're going to get more starts out of them. And especially these horses that have grass. I sit there and I watch, I look, and I know myself, I only have like 6 New York breds, and 3 of them are turf horses. They just sit at our farm all winter long because there's no races for them. I'm not going to run them, but they'll run now because they'll run on synthetic.
I mean, with your horse stock,
right,
and the large amount of horses you have, you can have a great 3-month Belmont meet. I mean,
I would hope to even have. I could see us, and the wheels are already in motion.
Of course,
but we'll stay here year round. But that will definitely draw us in, and yeah.
So I want to be honest with you, from being a New Yorker, and I follow races all over the country, and I never know what guests I want to choose for the show. It has to kind of hit me, right? I've had, valets, I've had, jockey agents, under the radar, high profile, I never have a real plan until I walk the track and I get a feel for somebody. And I have to admit that I've always observed you from a distance. And I really didn't have a great gauge on you other than your record speaks for yourself. You're one of the greatest trainers in my lifetime, but I never had a feel for you. And then, and I've been here several years. You know, I used to have my chair sit at when you walk in from the Oklahoma and you walk the horses down the path towards the paddock. And I always would observe you. And you were always with Tina, your wife. Never, always side by side walking in. And I kind of made a mental note of that. And then 2 Sundays ago, I'm walking to bring my beach chair back to store it. And I see you and Tina. There's nobody around. And you're in the grandstand and you're watching a TV. And I stop. Like I catch you on the rebound. But I will kind of stand there and I'm watching you watch a race at Woodbine, which you win. And I all of a sudden, like the light bulb went off in my head. Like, here's this husband and wife team. And he's at Saratoga. And he's watching a race at Woodbine. And he's in the grandstand. And he's one of the best trainers in the history of the game. Almost, I would even say, not under the radar in that sense, but I started to really appreciate you,
Oh,
you know,
thank you.
and your success as I was walking back to park my chair. And then that's when I walked back and I introduced myself. And I look at you, you know, and I've been thinking about you since then. And Chad Brown, Todd Pletcher, and you, and Jay Wright, the coach of Villanova, who's retired. I look at all 4 of you as CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. And what I marvel about is how you have these big strings of horses at different venues, like Chad Brown and like Todd Pletcher, and could manage that business model. So my question to you is, how do you do it? And what is your day like from the minute you wake up to when you go to sleep?
So it changes depending where I'm at. But so I'll tell you a day. I spend a lot of time. We have a big training center in Ocala. So I'll tell you how that starts. I wake up at 4 in the morning.
Okay, 7 days a week. Do you take a day where you kind of sleep in?
No, because you can't really once you get kind of used to it. So I get up at 4 in the morning. This is when I'm in Ocala, and I have a golf simulator, and I play 18 holes of golf.
Simulate mean like in your house?
Yeah.
It's kind of.
So I play 18 holes from 4 to 5.
How does that work? A simulate like
It just
like playing golf on a course?
yeah, you hit balls, and,
Right.
yeah, and you drive the ball, then you hit your short shot, and then you
This is at 4 when you get up.
yeah.
Okay.
At 5 o'clock, I start making breakfast for Tina and my son Colby.
Okay.
And at about 5:45 to 6 o'clock, I head out to the track to watch horses train. I usually watch those train from about 6. See, it doesn't get light as early down there. So about 6:15, I start watching horses train. We'll train till about 11:30 or so. I'll come home and eat some lunch, and then it depends. I make a lot of phone calls. I also, if I have horses running, but all my assistants send me their daily training charts of what we've done that day. I review them, and then during the day, I go over every horse, and then I send it out that night at about 5 o'clock and tell them what I want to do tomorrow. I also get lots of videos of horses training, working. We have a thing called a VLL that we've been using. It's a video lameness locator. We can take a horse and video the horse jogging back and forth. It then downloads and goes to Stockholm, Sweden, and read by a computer. And then that computer sends me back a report. And I read the report and determine if I want to train the horse tomorrow, or if I feel like I want further information on why this horse maybe isn't 100% sound. So I also do that a lot.
You also hire some tremendous assistant trainers. Like my one that comes to mind, and it's the guy, if he was training on his own, and he has, is David Carroll.
Right.
I mean, that he handles your Kentucky.
Well, he's not with me anymore.
When
David,
did
he left in April. He's with Cherie
Devon
now. But yeah, and that was because I'll tell you why is I had just decided I wasn't going to have as big a presence in Kentucky. We had 2 strings in Kentucky, and we went down to 1. And David had, and I love David Carroll. He's a great horseman, but he had the opportunity. Cherie was looking for somebody, and I had told him, I said, David, if maybe this is a good time for you to do that. And so he did it. But I have I have a guy named David Adams that's been with me 30 years. He is my Woodbine guy. To me, he's the best horseman that I've ever been around.
How old a guy?
He's a little younger than me.
Okay.
But, so it's kind of, we have a lot of good young people, men and women, that work for us. They learn how I do things. They report everything. And then I'm like air traffic control.
Well, that's what when I say like a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, there's an artistry and to do that. I mean, it's different, but in your case and in Chad Brown case and not every trainer can do that.
No, Harry Mangurian, who I often reference, is probably the smartest man I've ever was around. He's told me, you know what, your greatest attribute is being able to delegate. And he said, you get people to work for you like they're working for themselves. He said, not everybody can do that. And again, one thing I'm extremely proud of is how long we've had, these people work for us, and it's not for us, with us as a team. And I'm proud, we have a lot of owners that have been with us for a long time. We represent some of the biggest in the game.
My operation, I have, people around the country working for me, and I find that the reason I'm successful is because of understanding how to manage them. I hire them because I respect them and they're honest and hardworking. And then I let them do their thing. I will intervene when I
am too. I'm not a micromanager.
No,
by any.
Neither am I. I don't think that works.
No. So we have most of the time, I have a guy, Mitch Downs, been with me over 40 some years. The way it'll work is if there's a minor issue or something, they'll report to him, and then he'll come to me if he thinks that it's something that I need to, to look at even closer. Now, every assistant can come to me, but they don't hit me with everything. They'll go to Mitch and say, "What do you think?" And Mitch will say, "Well, I think this is a decision Mark needs to make."
Right, right.
But we have a way we do, yeah. I guess your the biggest question that's ever asked of me is, how do you do it? How do you keep track of it? And again, Tina's a big part of it. I couldn't do it without her. And I think we have a good team, and I think we're very organized.
Do you ever all get together? Have you ever?
Now, you mean all our people? They couldn't because
They're different. Right.
it wouldn't
It'd be hard.
well, it wouldn't be possible
Right.
because they're. I'd have to bring all my horses in one place.
Right, right.
That's not going to happen.
So I have to say that the meet you're having, you've had 7 winners at Saratoga. You're killing it, Woodbine. You're up by 20 or 30 wins over Kevin Attard. But before this meet started, how many did you bring to Saratoga?
We normally bring 30, 32. And this meet has eaten my lunch on many occasions. The only thing, if you ever analyzed our meets, they usually get stronger as they get longer.
Right.
We usually finish very well. The one thing too, you got to remember, I don't for the most part bring claiming horses.
Right.
I bring stake horses or allowance type
Right, or
horse
maidens.
or maiden. So that makes it more difficult because you're coming in. This is without a doubt the toughest meet in North America. And so you're coming in and you're coming into the meat of it. You're coming in, if I really wanted to win more races here, I could come and play in the claiming game because I have a lot of horses. I could bring a lot of horses here and be very
aggressive
and competitive. But they all have I have plans for them. For one, I train a lot of Canadian breds, which, right now, knock on wood, it looks like the King's Plate. Last year we finished first and second in the King's Plate. This year we have the first, second, and third choice in the King's Plate this year. So, yeah, it's tougher. These are, when you're dealing with trying to beat Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher and Bill Mott, it's not easy.
But you have 7. You're hitting like 33%, which is it's
a lot of that. A lot of that's sometimes things just work out, and
right.
We've been lucky. Yeah.
But when I think of Mark Casse as a handicapper, right? I think your strength is when your horses are ready to run, they perform. They need the setup. If you get the setup, like for instance, you have to have luck, but your horses are ready they're sharp. They're well prepared. I'll give you an example, and a lot of them show speed. A lot of them show tactical speed. The ones that I'm,
yeah, maybe, but well, if you're going to be competitive at Saratoga, you got to have speed, especially on dirt.
Yeah, yesterday you win a stake at
Allowance,
11, at 11-1 shot wires
the
that
field.
Was
okay.
Wires
that was
the field
Saturday, right?
Saturday,
yeah.
Right. You wire the field, you win easily. You on Haskell Day, you win the United Nations. There's a scratch of a speed horse, but your horse is so sharp and well meant. Get Stormy or
no.
got
smoking.
Got smoking. Got smoking. That wins. Yesterday here at Saratoga goes out to the lead. You think there's going to be, the horse is razor sharp, fights off challenges, perfect ride at the end to hold off the horse coming up the rail. It's almost a dead heat, but wins.
Yeah, I knew, going in yesterday, that horse was really good. I felt like he was going to run the best race he's run.
Lightly raced, improving, steadily improving.
And we've had a few little issues with him. Mrs. Weber's great. We sent him home on a couple occasions. The horse that was really epitomizes our operation would have get smoking because we took him, he won the $1.8 million race, and we got him as a 5-year-old, I believe. And then he won the $1.8 million race at Kentucky Downs. And we took him out to the Breeders' Cup, and he wasn't right. And we scratched it. We didn't run him. And we took him home, and he ended up having double ankle surgery, left and both front ankles. We rehabbed him. We have a wonderful rehab center, at our training center, and we brought him back. I sent him to Woodbine to get ready on the synthetic, because I felt like if I had to get him ready, he's a turf horse. If he had to train on dirt every day, I couldn't have got him ready. We ran him one time. He made his second start in 7 months, and he wins. So he not only was handled by our one team when we were in California, he then went and was handled by our team that handles all the rehabs, moved to our team that handles the training at Churchill in Ocala, then moved to our team at Woodbine, and then went to our team back here.
Before going to Monmouth, right? That's what I mean about just having this big operation and having your staff, different parts.
Well, that's the thing. See, I can sit there, and it's expensive to do if a guy, doesn't have a team or go in. But I sit and look at condition books, all not just in the East, but in California. I look and I'm like, where does this horse fit in? Where does this horse need to be? And we have the ability to move them, and nothing changes. If you go and Joe Blow is training a horse, and you send it to Lisa Blow or somebody else, there is no exchange. There's a lot of guessing. We from our VLLs, which shows lameness, to videos, everything gets passed on, and
it's unbelievable.
So,
I'm just going to mention two horses that obviously, they're marquee horses in your lifetime, but they were a couple of my favorites. So I just have to ask you about them. Sealy Hill. She was
amazing because she was so ornery. If I knew, probably before I ever ran her first start, she was 3 times she was under the starting gate. She would flip out in the starting gate, and she nearly won the Breeders' Cup. She ran second. A great horse, and ended up being a great broodmare, great producer. She produced I trained Hillaby, who was champion, but she produced 3 or 4 really good horses.
And your best, or got to be right up there, the top 2, Tepin. I mean, what could you say?
Tepin, she got us to meet the Queen. She did things.
What was that like? Like you go.
It was she loved
Royal Ascot.
Yeah. So what happened? That's a bit of a funny story. So she wins, and I did all kinds of I interviewed, I don't know, for an hour. So I said, when do I get to meet the Queen? And they said, you missed her. I was like, you're kidding. I wanted to meet the Queen. So the next day I did an interview for the Racing Post, and they said, would you ever come back? I said, only if I get to meet the Queen. I was being funny.
Right.
I didn't realize too that she would read the Racing Post every day. So it just happens the next year we brought another horse back, and we're sitting there waiting. We only have about 2 hours till we run. A guy comes to our box. He said, the Queen would like to meet you.
A guy comes over to you, says,
yeah, he came. Yeah. So
okay, you get up.
So we go to the box. We go and they tell us, what you're supposed to do. And
what did they tell you? Like,
you're not supposed to touch her, I don't think. I don't remember exactly, but you can't take pictures with,
right.
So we go, and my wife and my son, Colby, who at the time he's 21 now, would have been about 14. We go and meet her, and she starts talking, and she's asking me about these horses. And And meanwhile, it's gotten pretty close to when I have to be in the paddock to saddle this horse. And I'm talking to her, and you're on, yes, you're on, yes, and she's telling me, and I trained some for the Farishes, and was very friendly with the Farishes, and so we were talking about Bill Farish and Will Farish, and I'm looking at her, the guy that her representative, and he knows that I'm now getting nervous because I have to go.
Right.
And how do you tell?
How do you say to the Queen, I
Yeah.
got hasta la
Yeah.
vista, baby?
So he says, Your Majesty, he has to go saddle his horse. And she said, Tally ho, off you go, like that. And we went. So then we were walking in, and my son Colby said, Dad, were you nervous? And I said, No, not really. He goes, Oh, my knees were shaking. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
she's from what I've read, she's
She was a lovely lady, yeah.
give me one more great story, like from your. It doesn't matter what it
I'll
is.
tell you a funny story, and I think I may have told it at the Hall of Fame, but my son Colby's like 13 or so, and 12, 13, maybe not even 10, and we're having dinner the night before, and I said to him, I said, Mom and Dad have to go to Toronto tomorrow for the Sovereign Awards, and he goes, Oh, do you think you have a chance? And I said, I think we have a pretty good chance of winning. And he said, Yeah, I guess Todd Pletcher doesn't run much in Canada. This is my 10-year-old. That was funny.
So, where do you see Mark Casse to be 5 years from now, 10 years? You want to still continue training as long as you can, and
So yeah, I think right now I do. Maybe not in the number capacity that I am. I don't know. I'm excited because Norman's went on and is doing things.
he was in a race here his first
Yeah,
run Saturday with
right. He
a
did.
really good horseman. I mean,
Game
he's
winner, I
he's
think,
really
or
good.
was that
Yeah,
his name? No, not game winner. Something.
yeah.
Game winner's a sire, but something like that. But yeah, he's good. Now my youngest, 21, Colby, he's just now getting into it. He's here working. He's helping. He runs things down at our training center. So, I don't know. I don't know. I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now. I've been coming here
Do you
for
take
50 years.
a vacation every year?
No,
There's
not
no vacation. Like a
not well. What we did, I got all my kids and my grandkids and everybody, and we went for about 10 days. I rented a big house down near St. Petersburg, Florida, and half everybody was sick. So we don't do anything. I would like to do more of that. Tina and I've talked about, going on maybe to Europe or something. The problem is really the only time I could do it is in December. In December, it's a little chilly. So I don't know. I love what I'm doing. So
How many grandkids do you have?
7.
7, and you got them all together.
We got everybody together, and some of them had their girlfriends. We have wives, Norman and Gabby, and at the time, Miles, he's only 2 months old or so. That was their youngest, and yeah, they were sick. Then Tina got sick. We had to go home a few days early, but we'll see. It seems like when you put all the kids and everybody together, there's always somebody sick.
We did that. Me and my wife did that a week before Saratoga started, and it's going to be a tradition where we rented a house in Rhode Island, in close proximity to like 4 different beaches. And the most fun part was just sitting on the couch and having my grandkids crawl all over me.
Yeah.
And like, just being a kid myself. And, it's something that I've really grown to appreciate that time.
Well, I think too, I enjoy like um I'm sure Norman's little guys, they're going to be baseball players. Norman and Joel, my two sons, older sons, they were both really good baseball players. My son Colby was a good baseball player too. So now you like to go and you can watch, watch that too. So that's fun.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for
Thanks for having
coming
me.
on. I really appreciate,
Thanks for having
it
me.
was an honor to have you.
Well, I appreciate
Thank
you
you,
having
Mark.
me. Okay.
Thank you.
Welcome back. It's time for us to ship out with our final comments on this week of racing here at Saratoga. There's a couple of things that I want to talk about, and I'm looking, I'm looking for your feedback on this and your ideas. I mean, the bottom line is, I've always said context is everything, and we're in 2024. We're not in 1999. We're no longer the 24-day Saratoga meet, and almost everything about those days is slipping away. And when I say context is everything, we race in Saratoga now every summer in the context of Ellis Park and their rejuvenation and their increased purse structure and Colonial Downs And I don't want to use the term, but I'm going to use the term poaching. There was a time in this fair land when nobody could poach trainers, owners, or horses who wanted to run at Saratoga at the premier meet. Second thing but now there is a context that says trainers and owners have two other options and the purses are good. And so the result is that fields here are not as strong or not as deep as they used to be or they once were. The other aspect of it is that there was a time in this fair land, or you want to say in a galaxy far away, 10,000 claimers, 12.5 claimers, maiden 20 claimers. The outfits who own that type of horse, once the Belmont Stakes was over downstate, the month and a half before they came to Saratoga, the racing secretary wrote races for those guys. My uncle used to say they all got to eat, and the racing secretary knew they weren't coming to Saratoga. They didn't fit the condition book for Saratoga, so they wrote races for them down there. And now we're getting races written for them up here, 10,000, 12,005 maiden claimants, and they're not even full fields, Michael. And so the two issues, given the context, the racing secretary, in my opinion, can't say, well, it's the context. No, his job is to fill fields and to maintain what are the high standards and the high bar that is Saratoga. And I know it gets more and more difficult every year, but I don't want to hear empty excuses. What do you think, buddy?
That was a lot to digest. I mean, you're right, and you're right. I mean, it's how many weeks is the meet? 6, 7 weeks?
That's right. 40 days.
It's they want to run 10, 11 races. I say let the racing secretary run it, cart 8 races.
Absolutely.
And, less races, but fuller fields. Go out of your way to court shippers that fit the condition. They have this rule that if you run a horse here, you only have to pay it once, but it's quite a bit of money, the workman's comp insurance. Right. So if you're running, you have some Kentucky guys shipping in 10 horses. I know Rigney and Phil Bauer come in with 10 or 12. So they pay the workman's comp because they're here with a bunch of horses. But, you want to fill races. You fill races, you have more betting. You have more excitement. Compensate those guys for, and you have to incentivize. Those guys have to pay for shipping to come here.
Well, I know. Look at the steeplechase guys.
They didn't get.
They're taking hits.
They are. So I say, go into your coffers, into the bank account, help the small guy with his trip here, right? You know, with the trip. Try your hardest to fill races 10 or more and only run 8 or 9 races, at least Wednesday, Thursday.
I agree wholeheartedly on that as a potential solution. We don't need 10, 11 race cards where 2 or 3 of the races after scratches are down to 5 horses, 6 horses. Anyhow, that's my advocacy for this week.
Yep.
And so we're going to ship out. Remember, we're brought to you by WizardRacingSports.com. He's Michael Kickness. I'm Tom Amello. We'll see you next week.
Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now. Since 1986, the Wizard has been your source for the best handicapping products for the always challenging Saratoga meet. Wizard selections include analysis and wagering strategies for every race. Wagers are updated after late scratches. The Wizard wagers every day, backing up his opinions with his own money. Visit WizardRacingSports.com and purchase now.